The classroom buzzed with energy every morning, the kind of excitement that fills the air when children are eager to be seen, heard, and praised. But at the very back, near the cracked window, sat Liam, the boy who seemed to belong to the shadows. His chair was old and creaky, his books second-hand, and his uniform slightly faded. While others competed to answer questions, Liam quietly flipped through pages, hoping the teacher wouldn't notice him. Not because he didn't want to be noticed, but because he knew it wouldn't make a difference. Mr. Carter, the science teacher, was a man of precision and pride. His hair was always combed neatly, his shoes polished, his voice firm. Students respected him, even feared him. He liked bright students and the kind who spoke confidently, who got perfect marks, who made him look good. Liam wasn't one of them. Whenever Liam raised his hand, Mr. Carter's eyes seemed to pass right through him, landing on someone else. "Yes, Emily," he'd say, ignoring the small hand trembling in the air at the back. The pattern repeated day after day until Liam's hand no longer rose. He sat quietly, invisible among his classmates. He watched as others were praised, cheered, and given chances he never got. Sometimes he'd whisper an answer under his breath, always the correct one, only to hear someone else shout it louder and get credit. The sting of being ignored cut deeper than any insult could. During breaks, the louder kids mocked him for being quiet. "Hey, genius, why don't you speak up?" one boy teased. "He probably doesn't know anything." Another laughed. Liam forced a small smile and walked away, pretending not to care. But deep down, each word carved a mark inside him. At home, things weren't much brighter. His father worked double shifts at a factory, often coming home too tired to talk. His mother had passed away years ago, leaving behind a quiet emptiness that filled the small apartment. Still, Liam found comfort in one thing: books. He read everything he could get his hands on. Science fascinated him. Machines, inventions, experiments, they all made sense to him in a way people didn't. He would stay up late, taking apart broken toys and fixing them just to see how they worked. But no matter how smart he was, no one at school seemed to care. Mr. Carter didn't ask for his opinion, didn't check his work, didn't even remember his name most days. One afternoon, after yet another class where he went unnoticed, Liam lingered as everyone left. He stood near the teacher's desk, gathering the courage to speak. "Sir," he said softly, I think I can do better if—" Mr. Carter didn't look up from his papers. "Liam, please go. I'm busy right now." The words hit like a slap. Liam nodded quietly and left. That night, lying on his bed, he stared at the ceiling, thinking about how unfair it all felt. But somewhere deep inside him, a voice, soft and familiar, whispered. It was his mother's voice echoing from the past. "Even if no one sees your light, keep shining. The right eyes will notice one day." He closed his eyes, letting those words wrap around him like a blanket. Maybe he couldn't force anyone to see him now, but one day when he'd make them notice. Not by speaking louder, but by doing something no one could ignore. And so as the night deepened, a small spark of determination flickered inside the invisible boy. It wasn't bright yet, but it was enough to begin a change that would soon light up his entire world. The next week began like every other: noisy hallways, laughter echoing, and teachers juggling piles of assignments. Liam walked quietly to his desk, keeping his head low as usual. But that morning, Mr. Carter's announcement changed everything. "Class," he said with his usual authority, "the school will be holding a science exhibition next month. Every student must participate. You'll create a project that demonstrates innovation, creativity, and scientific understanding. The top 3 projects will receive certificates, and the winner will get a scholarship." The room erupted in excitement. Everyone started whispering ideas: solar panels, water filters, volcano models, and glowing charts. The air was buzzing with energy. For most students, it was just another chance to show off. But for Liam, sitting quietly at the back, it felt like a door opening, a chance to finally prove that he wasn't invisible. He raised his hand timidly. "Sir, can we work in groups?" "Yes," said Mr. Carter. "Groups of 2 or 3. As soon as he said it, students rushed to form pairs. The room filled with chatter and laughter as everyone found their teammates. Within minutes, every student had a group except Liam. He stood there awkwardly, glancing around, but no one looked his way. Some avoided eye contact on purpose. Others just didn't think of him. When Mr. Carter noticed, he sighed. "You can do something simple on your own, Liam," he said flatly. "Maybe a chart about the solar system or the water cycle." The class laughed. Liam forced a smile and nodded, but inside, he felt the familiar sting of being dismissed. Again. That evening, he walked home under the fading orange sky, his backpack heavy but his mind heavier. His father was already at work and the small apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. He sat at the kitchen table staring at a blank sheet of paper labeled Science Exhibition Project Plan. He could have given up right there. He could have done something easy and forgettable, like everyone expected him to. But then as he looked at the empty page, he remembered his mother's voice again. "Even if no one sees your light, keep shining." He took a deep breath and wrote down a single word in the center of the page. Robot. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was something that made his heart race. What if he could create a robotic hand, one that could move and respond using sound or simple commands? It would be bold, difficult, and maybe even impossible with what little he had, but he wanted to try. Over the next few weeks, Liam's world became his small workspace. He collected parts from old radios, broken toys, and junkyard scraps. He used wires, tiny motors, screws, and bits of metal that others had thrown away. Every cut and bruise on his hands became a mark of progress. He stayed up late at night soldering and testing. Sometimes the hand fell apart. Sometimes the circuits refused to work. But every failure only made him more determined. At school, no one noticed his effort. Mr. Carter still ignored him and classmates still whispered behind his back. But Liam didn't care anymore. He had found something stronger than their words: purpose. Finally, after weeks of trial and error, something incredible happened. When he clapped his hands near the sensor, the robotic fingers twitched. When he spoke softly into a small mic, the hand moved. Slowly at first, but it worked. Liam stared at it in awe, a smile spreading across his tired face. For the first time, he didn't feel invisible. He felt powerful. The exhibition was only a few days away and his project wasn't perfect. But it was real. It was his and it was alive. He gently touched the robotic hand and whispered, "We'll show them." Not to prove them wrong, but to show that I was always right to believe in myself. And that night, as the small light on his robot blinked in the dark, Liam knew his spark had finally been lit. The day of the science exhibition finally arrived. The entire school was decorated with colorful banners, handmade posters, and rows of project tables neatly lined up in the main hall. Students wore their best uniforms and biggest smiles, each ready to present their hard work. Excitement filled the air like electricity. But at the very end of the hall, near a flickering light and a cracked wall, stood Liam's small table. His display looked nothing like the others. While his classmates had fancy models with shining labels and bright decorations, Liam's table had only one thing: a small robotic hand, resting quietly on a wooden base, surrounded by a few wires and switches. He wiped his sweaty palms on his trousers and took a deep breath. His heart pounded in his chest as he watched students proudly show off their polished projects. One of the groups had built a solar-powered car. Another had a model of a wind turbine that actually spun. Their tables were surrounded by cheering classmates and impressed teachers. No one stopped by Liam's corner. Some glanced at him and whispered. Others giggled at the messy setup. He pretended not to hear. At exactly 10 a.m., Mr. Carter entered, the hall with two judges, the school principal and a guest engineer. The moment he walked in, silence fell. He began inspecting each project carefully, asking questions and nodding approvingly. Liam watched them move from one table to the next, getting closer with every step. His stomach twisted with nerves. He wanted to run away, to disappear before they reached him. Finally, they stopped in front of him. Mr. Carter barely looked up from his clipboard. "All right, Liam," he said, his tone flat. "Show us what you've got." Liam swallowed hard. His throat was dry, his hands trembling. "Sir, it's a robotic hand," he began softly. "I built it from recycled materials, old toys, wires, and, parts from broken machines." The students standing nearby started whispering. Someone snickered. "Recycled junk." Mr. Carter sighed. Let's see if it works, he said impatiently. Liam nodded. He took a deep breath and clapped his hands near the sensor. For a second, nothing happened. A wave of embarrassment washed over him. But then, click. The robotic fingers twitched. Another clap. The hand rose slowly and waved. The laughter stopped. Everyone leaned closer. He spoke softly into the mic connected to the system. "Open," he said. The metal fingers spread apart smoothly. "Close." The hand obeyed. "Move right." It shifted. "Move left." It turned. Gasps filled the room. Even Mr. Carter stepped forward, eyes wide. "How did you manage this?" he asked, his voice no longer cold. Liam's confidence grew a little. "I studied sound sensors and motor signals from library books," he explained. "I wanted to make something that could respond to simple commands, maybe even help people who can't use their hands." The judges exchanged impressed looks. The principal smiled. "That's remarkable, young man. Did someone help you?" Liam shook his head. "No, sir, I did it by myself. I just used what I had." For the first time, the entire hall was silent, not because of indifference, but because of respect. Mr. Carter looked at him for a long moment. His expression softened and a faint smile appeared. "You've done something extraordinary, Liam," he said quietly. "I didn't expect this from you." Liam met his gaze, his voice calm but firm. "That's okay, sir. No one ever does until they finally see." The words hung in the air like a spark, and even Mr. Carter couldn't find a reply. As the judges moved on, students began crowding around Liam's table, asking questions, touching the robotic hand, and congratulating him. For the first time, he wasn't invisible. The quiet boy from the back of the class had finally found his voice, and he didn't even need to shout. That night, when Liam walked home carrying his project in his arms, the streetlight seemed brighter, the air lighter. He smiled to himself, knowing the moment of truth had come, and he had faced it fearlessly. The next morning, the school hall buzzed with excitement once again. Posters from the science exhibition still hung on the walls, but today was different. It was the results day. Every student waited eagerly to hear the winners' names. Liam arrived early, carrying his robotic hand carefully in his backpack. He didn't expect much. He wasn't hoping for applause or trophies. After all, he had already won something far greater. He had finally been seen. Still, his heart raced as he sat in the front row for the first time in his life. Normally, he would hide in the back corner, but today, he wanted to feel what it was like to belong. Mr. Carter stood at the stage with a microphone in hand, reading from a sheet of paper. "We had many impressive projects this year," he began, scanning the room. Solar-powered models, water purifiers, and environmental innovations. But one project stood out for its creativity, effort, and purpose. The hall went silent. Liam held his breath. "The first prize," Mr. Carter continued, pausing for a moment, "goes to Liam Turner for his robotic hand." The room erupted in applause. Some students who once ignored him were now cheering. Even those who had mocked him were clapping sincerely. Liam sat frozen for a second, unable to believe what he'd just heard. "Come on, Liam," a voice from behind whispered. "Go." He stood slowly and walked to the stage, his steps shaky but proud. Mr. Carter smiled, a real, genuine smile, and handed him the golden certificate. "You've made us proud," he said softly, loud enough only for Liam to hear. "And I owe you an apology." Liam looked up, surprised. Mr. Carter continued, "I was wrong to overlook you. You reminded me that real talent doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers until it's finally heard." Liam's throat tightened. He wanted to say something, but his emotions caught in his chest. He simply nodded, and the audience applauded again. Cameras flashed, students cheered, and for the first time in his school life, his name was being spoken with admiration. After the ceremony, reporters from the school magazine surrounded him. "How did you come up with the idea?" one asked. "Where did you learn to build it?" another added. Liam smiled shyly. I just wanted to make something useful, he said. Something that showed even broken things, or people, can work again if given a chance. Mr. Carter, standing nearby, felt those words pierce his heart. He remembered all the times he had ignored that quiet boy in the back row, thinking he had nothing to offer. Now that same boy had taught him one of life's greatest lessons: never underestimate anyone. From that day on, things began to change in Mr. Carter's class. He no longer called only on the loudest or the brightest students. He started listening to everyone, especially the quiet ones. He realized that silence didn't mean weakness, sometimes it meant depth. And as for Liam, his life took a new direction. His project was featured in the local newspaper. A small tech company invited him to visit their lab. His father, for the first time in years, took a day off work just to hug him and say, "I'm proud of you, son." But even with all the attention, Liam never let it change who he was. He still sat in the back sometimes, still preferred books over crowds, and still spoke softly. But now, his silence wasn't invisible anymore. It was powerful. One afternoon, as he was packing up his things after class, Mr. Carter approached him. "Liam," he said with a gentle smile, "you've made me rethink what it means to teach. Thank you." Liam looked up, the sunlight from the window reflecting in his eyes. "And thank you, sir," he replied, "for finally seeing me." As he walked home that day, carrying his small trophy in his backpack, the world felt brighter, the road lighter. He had learned something he would never forget. You don't need to be loud to make noise. Sometimes your actions speak louder than your voice ever could. And so the boy who was once invisible had become unforgettable.